Well, good evening. Welcome to Thursday evening devotions from the kitchen table this evening. I hope you liked the video that I put on before this video started, the music video. It's called Up to the Mountain. It's by a young woman by the name of Brandy Love. And it's an old Martin Luther King song. It was created to honor him. It was written. And of course, she's changed it as some artists do. They edited for her, or edited it out for her voice and for her style. But it's a nice song. I hope you liked it. And well, this evening we've been talking about, up to this evening we've been talking about women of the Bible each week. Many of those women didn't even have names, but they had jobs or titles that we know them by. We do know that because of them, the men that were in front of them, or the men that they were behind, were able to become holy men and great men in many cases. And they're the ones that we talk about in the scriptures. They would not have been able to do that had the women not been supporting them or been behind them. And so I think it's important that we talk about women of the Bible. Now, we're going to be looking at a story that's found in 1 Samuel chapter 25 this evening. And it's a story of Abigail. Abigail, there are two Abigails in the Bible. The first is David's half-sister. This is not the one that we're talking about this evening. This is another Abigail. And her name means father of joy or cause of joy or my joy. We have no clue as to her parentage or her genealogy. We really don't know a lot about her other than she was a Jewess. And the scriptures tell us that she was a very beautiful woman and highly intelligent. And so in her husband's house, her husband's name was Nabal, by the way, and his name is not so complimentary. It means fool. And he was, when you read the story, you can see how foolish he was. But she must have been an angel in his household. Well, Abigail, Nabal, by the way, there are three characters in this story. There's Abigail, there's her husband Nabal, and then there's David. And we'll see those in a moment. But Nabal, her husband, we're told that he was a very crude and rude man, very churlish, self-centered, avarice. He didn't care about anybody but himself. And he didn't care what he said or who he heard. He's just one of those kinds of persons. He's the kind of person that although they didn't have laws against such a thing in that day, but in our world today, or in our culture today, the way this man was, he would be one that would be a cause or a creator of domestic violence. He would be an abuser in a household just by his actions. So Abigail then was a pretty sunny person, even in the midst of a miserable family life, that she seemed to find joy in the midst of a family life. And you could tell by the way, just by the way she took her oaths and her oath of marriage, and that she had been brought up in a godly house, because she knew how to offset her husband's rudeness to other people, and how to plead for mercy. And she was a believer in God, where her husband was not a believer in God. Her husband was a foreigner. He was not a Jew. Well, Nabal, though, was very rich. And, you know, the way he was, it makes you wonder, why would a woman like Abigail marry a man like Nabal, the way he was? They were complete opposites. well, in that day, the woman didn't have much choice as to who she was going to marry. Those marriages were arranged by the families, and oftentimes for economic reasons. And so Nabal's family, being wealthy, were more than likely sought out by Abigail's family, and so the arrangements were made by her family. And she married Nabal, and she took her marriage vows serious. And even though it was a difficult marriage, that she managed to stay with him. Nabal would tell all kinds of lies, and he was just abusive, and he hurt other people, and she all the time, she had to step in and try to smooth things over. Well, we're told that Nabal's shepherds had been out in the fields, and David as well was out in the fields, and David had 600 men with him. So David and his men would watch over Nabal's shepherds to make sure nothing come up missing, or they weren't attacked by rustlers or thieves or anybody else. When it came time and David wanted to celebrate, and it was sheep shearing time, and so David sent some messengers, or 10 servants, to Nabal's house, and they said, welcome and greetings and honor from our master David. He sends his greetings to you, Nabal. He requests that if you have, he said, when your shepherds were alongside of us, we looked after them. We put up a wall of protection for them, and nothing came up missing of theirs. And so we want to celebrate. It's that time of year for us to have a celebration. And we just ask you if you have anything extra, any kind of food or meat or bread or drink, send it with us so that we can go back and have a celebration. Our people got along well together with yours, and so our master David, the son of Jesse, asked that you provide us something. And Nabal became very rude, and he said, well, I don't know who this David is. I don't know who Jesse is. You folks mean nothing to me. Why should I give you my servants, my shepherds, food and drink so that you can celebrate? Why should I do that? I'm not going to do that. And they went back and told David about Nabal's attitude and what he said, and David became very upset, and he told the men with him, and the 600 men that were with him, and said, gather up your swords, take up your swords, we're going to go back and we're going to teach Nabal a lesson. We're going to kill every man in his household. We'll teach him not to do that, to be rude and crude like that. And one of the servants went to Abigail and told her what David had said. And without hesitation, she gave orders to round up a bunch of supplies, a bunch of food and drink and all kinds of supplies, and load up donkeys with them. And they headed out to find David, to go to David's campsite. Well, as they were on the way, David was already on his way to Nabal's household, and David stopped, and Abigail then rode her donkey on toward David. She got off of her donkey and went over and fell down at David's feet, just like a servant would fall down before their master. Abigail then pled for mercy, and she said, David, don't take this vengeance into your own hands. Don't fly off the handle on something at the spur of the moment, but let the Lord deal with this. And so David said, okay, you were right in telling me that. He said, I appreciate that. I shouldn't just go off on my own, but I should let the Lord deal with this. And he was grateful for her counsel. And he asked her to stay, but she returned. She was faithful to her unfaithful husband to her rude husband, she went back to Nabal, and she told Nabal what she had done and what David had said. And Nabal became very angry. He became stricken with a stroke or whatever it was. And we're told then that he died 10 days later. The Lord had stricken him. And David was even more grateful then that he didn't go try to take vengeance into his own hands, that the Lord dealt with it in a fair and just way. And when he heard Nabal was dead, he sent word that Abigail should come to him. Now we're not told that there was any mourning for Nabal, any tears shed for Nabal. It's just that David wanted Abigail to come and to be his wife. And Abigail went and became David's wife then. Now, there's at least one lesson we can learn from Abigail's story, and that is that being yoked, for a Christian woman to be yoked with an unbeliever, with a non-believer, is oftentimes followed with harshness, an unpleasant family life, a lot of heartache involved in it, because believers and non-believers don't think alike. They don't have the same mercy and compassion on others. That they're just different. The Apostle Paul tells us in Corinthians not to be yoked with unbelievers, and it's for this reason. Now I know sometimes, even today, where in our day-to-day, in our culture, women have a choice of who they're going to marry. They're not arranged like they were in Abigail's day. But still, many people marry unpleasant persons, thinking that they're going to change that person. They become fond of them, and they like some of their rudeness and their crudeness, and so they say, we're going to change them. The truth of the matter is, you're not going to change them. You're not going to change them. If they wanted to change, they would, because only they can change themselves. And so the very thing that you like about them, if they're unbelievers, the very thing you like about them will more than likely, in the long term or in the end, cause you a great deal of grief and pain. Abigail made the best of her marriage to this churlish Nabal before his death. She remained faithful. She remained faithful to him before his death. But even in the midst of a miserable marriage life, God gave her the grace and joy as her name reflects. Abigail, the Father of joy, where my joy comes from. And He will give you joy too, along with grace and love and peace. God bless you. Have a great week.